Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. This is a very special conversation with the filmmakers and the cast of To All the Boys, Always and Forever, which is now available on Netflix. We are going to have the director and director of photography, Michael Fimognari, screenwriter, Katie Lovejoy, and executive producer, Robyn Marshall. And I should mention all three of them are Trojans. Plus we have three of the central cast members from the franchise: Anna Cathcart, who plays Kitty; Madeleine Arthur, who plays Chris; and Emilija Baranac, I hope I got that right, who plays Jen. If you want to ask questions, just go ahead and place them in the Q&A box below. I'll moderate for a bit and then we'll open it up to everyone else out there. So I hope you guys have a lot to add, and that's Katie. Perfect. So let me welcome everyone to just turn your cameras on and we'll get going. Amazing. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us for this. I have to say that I grew up in an era when romantic comedies were really good in like the 80s, and slowly and steadily, I sort of lost the appeal until movies like this and others on Netflix really, I think, brought back a real certain charm and heart to the genre. And I am so impressed that there are now 3 films, same franchise, each one of them full of heart, very funny, great characters. And I just love the fact that romantic comedies have become a really charming part of our culture again. So I guess I really want to start with Robyn, because this is a huge endeavor to make 3 adaptations and to make them so well. And I'd love to know how everything got started before we even get to the latest film.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for that. It's so wonderful to be here. It's so exciting to be at a USC event, of which I attended many when I was a student. I'm sure Michael and Katie was the same. I'm just like imagining we're at Norris Theater right now, and this will just have to do for the pandemic version. So yeah, I think that the genesis of this project was when we were working at Awesomeness TV. We were really trying to focus on finding, for lack of a better term, like YA stories to tell. My colleague Max Seamers found this movie that was had been set up at a studio and was in turnaround, and they'd wanted to make this movie for a bunch of money, and they wanted to change the ethnicity of the characters from what was in the book. And he found this incredible special book that I think had such a smart way of talking about what is the experience of liking someone and of being in love when you're young and you don't know how to do it. And we managed to get the project out. We our production was budgeted at a much lower level than the movie was initially thought people thought that they could make it for, and that was part of like our business plan of how we made movies. But we'd done it a bunch before. Michael and I were just chatting about how he and I have worked together now. This is like our 12th movie together, collaborating, and so he really knows how to make a small budget work, and I've done that a lot too. And I think we were all just so taken in by how simple the story was, and yet how sort of strong the emotions were. And you made the comment, Alex, of like this is kind of become a 3-movie franchise, which, by the way, you never go into this process thinking like, yes, this is going to be so good and so compelling that people are going to want the sequel and then the sequel to the sequel. And we were so lucky to have that happen in this case. But again, I think the characters, there was such a simple, clean, clear emotions between the characters. And that's really what carried it through the entire time and was really like the beating heart of everything we did.
A lot of romantic comedies have some sort of conceit or high concept, and there's no shortage of that in the original here that also plays a really important role in the sequel. But what I what I love about this third one is that it's not like it's chained to the sort of concept that got the story kickstarted. And it just really allows you to spend more time with these characters facing new challenges and new decisions. Let's talk a little bit about adapting the book. If there were things about, I guess let's say the original conceit with having the letters sent out, et cetera, that sort of had to be worked in, or Katie, if you had a certain amount of ideas for allowing this story to breathe without necessarily having to stick to a template of what a sequel is supposed to be.
Well, that's a great question. I would say that when I came on, obviously the first two films were already existed, or well, the first film existed and they were producing the second movie when I was hired. So I got to read the second film script, which was so helpful so that I could know kind of what world I was coming into. And there's always a challenge when you're a writer adapting something that is an extremely popular book franchise or book series, where you really want to do the book's justice to the fans, but you also have to make adjustments to take it from a novel to screen. And one of the things that I thought was really smart about the third movie as a concept is that it's still technically a love triangle story. It's just that instead of it being a love triangle between Peter and Josh, or Peter and oh my God, I'm totally
John Ambrose.
Thank you. It's a love triangle between Peter and New York, and so that was really the framework that I used to try to make it feel like it was still, even though it's very different than the other two movies, it still feels like it has a similar structure and a similar game that it's playing. There's themes around miscommunication and originally in the very first outline that I turned in, Robyn, I don't know if you remember this, but originally, when I got into college, you found out by letter, like they would send you a letter. And I thought that there was something so hilarious about the third movie having like the love triangle starts because of a letter. And then we were informed that that's like not how kids find out that they got into college anymore. So which made me feel extremely old. But that was really sort of the high concept conceit that I used when I was building the script. But one of the reasons that I was really attracted to this movie in particular, and why I was so excited to write it, is because it matures as Lara Jean and Peter mature. And so while it does have this game of a love triangle, it's dealing with it in a much more mature way, where it's, very high stakes for these characters around their college and their future. And I remember being that age and feeling like the college that I chose was going to dictate the entire rest of my life, which you could argue it totally did. I'm sitting here at this panel now after going to USC Film School for screenwriting. And so I was very excited about having the opportunity to step into the franchise and, try to do both the books and the movies justice, but then also just creatively the challenge of have this game or this conceit of the love triangle that exists in the first two movies, but handling it in a world where the characters are growing up and the stakes are getting more real and more grounded. So for me, that was really sort of how I looked at it when I was working on it.
Michael, when you came on board to direct the second and third, were they conceived as sort of kind of one big production, or two separate unique productions? I mean, I know that the last one takes you to some international locations, which is great too. But had you planned this out to be shot simultaneously, or were they shot and wrapped independently?
We knew going in that we were going to contain all of the production within one calendar year, but it wasn't shot as one production. Both films were separate, and so we were able to deal with the second film as its own thing, complete it, do a minimum amount of prep on the third before we could move into it. But what was good about doing them within the same production staff and with all the same crew and with all the same cast and some rhythm is that we knew where we were going with the third, and when we started to talk about script, we had meetings with, you know, Robyn, Katie, and I would be in script meetings for Always and Forever while we were in production on P.S. I Still Love You, and they fed each other. So we were able to go into cast rehearsals and talk about things that were going to happen in the next film, and be able to plant things in the second that would pay off in the third. And so there was something that worked out really well for that. But logistically, we had to plan to go to Seoul, we had to plan to go to New York, and those things they had their own prep.
I'm curious what it's like to jump in as the director of a part 2 and 3. Obviously, you had a lot to do with the look of the first film, having shot it, but you know, you're coming into a world that does have certain other things already cast. You know, you already know sort of a lot about the world here. What kind of flexibility do you have to make certain decisions about, you know, sort of the tone of the film, to keep it in sync with the first one, but also be something sort of special on its own?
Because I've been there for all of it, whether as a cinematographer or as a director, and so creating that tone was some of the most enjoyable filmmaking experiences I've had for the first film. So the color palette, the way the camera behaves, all of those choices are continued throughout. It was important to me as a director that you be able to push play on the first and see it evolve and see the characters grow up, but also feel like you're contained in the same world, that you didn't dive out of it and get handed a different language. So visually speaking, it was important that I kept it consistent but mature as it went through. And we talked a lot about what that maturity looked like, and whether that's in Lara Jean's fantasies, the way that she idealizes love in the first, and then how she starts to come to deal with choices that she has to make, or lies that she would tell in the first or the second that she won't tell in the third, and how that changes, not just for her, but how it changes for her relationships. And one of the most mature, and I think one of the most rewarding character arcs in the whole trilogy is the relationship between Lara Jean and Jen, and they come the farthest, and it's those relationships that when I think about building them and twisting them and understanding where we're going to go, you know, the books give us that. So I knew what we were working with. In any of the films, you kind of knew what we had, but it's in leaving these little breadcrumbs so that eventually you'll have this very rewarding, fulfilling character revelation. I looked at them, once we knew we were making the second and the third, really started to look at them as a first act, second act, third act of one large high school story about Lara Jean Covey.
I just wanted to add, from a producing standpoint, you know, with Michael, like having worked with him so many times and sort of seen his process as a DP, and, you know, what he brings to the table as a DP, it's like, you know, he's someone, probably more so than anyone I've ever worked with, who is asking story questions in order to figure out what the movie should look like. And he always comes from a place of story. That's always the first and last question. And, you know, he was so fundamental in creating the look that you see in that first movie. Like, that is Michael's design. And it was such a natural choice to put him into the director's chair for 2 and 3, because he so understood this movie, like, to its core. And it was really a joy to work with him in that new job.
Not to pile on the Michael of for a second, but just to do it. What Robyn said about Michael approaching everything from a place of story. I've worked with other directors in my career. I've produced a couple pilots, had very close relationships with directors that I've loved working with. But I will say that of everyone that I've worked with, Michael was the most, would always ask questions about story and then use those to inform how he was going to move the camera or make decisions about the directing. And that was such a rewarding experience to work with him as a writer. And it's really funny because even though, you know, people say like, don't read reviews and don't go on Twitter, of course I did. And one of the things that people talked about as being like the most surprising scene in the movie is the scene in the little cupcake bake shop. And that really is an example of Michael really pushing on story, because I think in my original draft, Peter and Lara Jean, when it was revealed what was actually happening, he was really mad at her. And Michael really challenged me on that and really pushed for him to respond differently and to show that like they've grown and they've been in a relationship for a year, and she just got rejected from the college that she wanted to go to. And would he really respond that way? And moments like that is an example of when a great collaboration just really elevates the work and makes it so that someone like me can do their best work. So Michael's the best, I think, is the summary of Robyn's.
I'm not going to take these compliments well, but what I am going to do is kick it. I appreciate that. Thank you. But I'm going to kick it back and to all the other people on this call and say that, you know, Alex, you asked earlier about like, what's it like to step in with a cast that's already there and sort of a machine that's rolling. And I was stepping into a family and a situation that was very ready to go in its commitment to telling the story. And so everybody in the cast, like, you know, and I would love to hear how, you know, Anna and Emilija and Madeleine sort of chime in on this too, how it feels to step onto these sets, right? Like Robyn sort of kept this machine rolling the whole time, but there's a very strong sense of ownership to the roles that we play. And so, you know, if you come in, and Anna would do this all the time and just walk in and say, I think it should be like this. And then we just run it. And it gets better. And we would run rehearsals. Sometimes Madeleine would read lines for somebody who wasn't supposed to be in the scene, or who wasn't present at the moment. And then we'd realize, hey, we should put Chris in this scene now because that worked out really well. And we would do it. Like that happened I think in the scene in Always and Forever, where Lara Jean gets rejected from Stanford. And the original draft of that had just Kitty and Margot on the phone, and Janelle wasn't available. And so Madeleine read for Janelle being on the phone, and the dynamic of having Chris in the room was so fantastic that we put her in. Like it's that kind of family that makes this possible.
I'm glad you, Kitty, I'm glad you brought up that scene where Peter reacts to learning that, you know, Lara Jean didn't get in, because that's one of those tropes that in some films would have really sort of made me very upset in the moment about how instead it's wonderful. It's a wonderful moment for learning, you know, who he is too in this relationship and in life. And I think that's one of the great things about this franchise is that, I mean, I call it a franchise, in this longer story, is that you really do get to see how they react over time to all sorts of new challenges. And I think that's why each one of them continued to build, instead of feeling like you're going through the motions of a sequel. You're actually continuing to learn who they are throughout each film. And I do agree that the growth that we see for Jen at the end is great too, and really something that we should talk about, because I'm curious if we can, if you would, Emilija, were all the novels done by the time you guys started the first one? Did you were you able to see into the future of your character when you first started?
Yeah, so all the novels were done, and I mean, I felt, you know, I wanted to read to kind of see the arc, but yeah, I was really happy that in the books there was that nice arc for Jen, and I'm really glad that it was also in the movies, because I think that relationship is so important to see as well, like for two women that, you know, can come together and just talk, I think was really, really special. So yeah.
Were you able to sort of lean into being an antagonist, knowing that at the end of it, we were going to care a lot more about your characters?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's why the first one was a lot of fun. Just really went for it.
And Anna, of course, you get this wonderful addition to your storyline with your boyfriend in Seoul. I have to say, I was really, really moved by the revelation of why you had withheld the information from your sister as an expression of your love and not wanting her to leave. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of sort of, you know, playing someone who is simultaneously putting up a really strong front and delivering a lot of zingers throughout the films, but then also obviously trying to fight back your own emotions as to what's happening within your family?
Yeah, Kitty's the funnest character. She's so much fun to play, but it is, yeah, that hard balance of like she's the comedic relief, but she's not just that. Like she also is a person who's going through stuff with her sisters moving away and she's growing up too, and like she's has them as role models and all these little things are meaningful to her as well. So I definitely would always think about that because even though she is just there for those little zinger lines, there's like more to her as well. But like Michael was saying, it was amazing to get to collaborate because I've worked on a bunch of different projects, but by far this one's the most like I felt heard and seen with my ideas, which is so cool and so special because it doesn't always happen. So we would like, yeah, if I had an idea or with the original dialogue with little tweaks or things that I think Kitty would do or say, or even with blocking, we'd work for so long just doing rehearsal before anyone else could even see it, just working with like Michael and the cast. And that was so helpful, and like those moments mean so much. So thank you,
Is
Michael,
there
for also.
any specific time that you can think of where one of those moments really stood out for you?
One of the scenes, don't even remember which one it was, but originally it was supposed to be in the kitchen, and then I think we switched it to her bedroom, or maybe it was the other way around, but it was a full location switch because we started working it out and we're saying this doesn't really make sense. Like, why would it be on this set? And it makes more sense if we're in this environment and we can sit on the floor instead of sitting formally at a table and things like that, getting to actually feel it out. Because even reading the script or even doing read throughs, you can get an idea, but when you're actually there and being like, this doesn't feel right is so different. So having time to get to do that and getting to work with other people and not being afraid, being like, this doesn't make sense, or like, I don't want to say anything because I'm just the actor. Like, it was so cool getting to feel like you could actually do that.
Madeleine, let's talk a little bit about your own conflict as a character, you know, having to simultaneously be kind of above it all, but then maybe secretly also liking some of it. Can you talk about like early decisions that you made about your character, because it does have sort of a strong point of view on the world, and how that sort of shifted over the course of making three different films? Oh no, I think you're frozen. All right, Madeleine, we'll give you a second to kind of.
I will say, while her Wi-Fi is reconnecting, just the trajectory of all three of these characters over the course of the series.
What was really wonderful. Am I back?
You're back.
Hello? Can you hear me? I've never had this happen. I've cut out like 5 times. But you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying was with Chris, like you were saying, she has such a strong point of view, and it was so enjoyable to kind of explore that over all 3. And what I really liked about the third movie specifically was kind of, we get to see, I think throughout all 3, Chris and Lara Jean like Chris is always giving advice and kind of getting Lara Jean to step out of her comfort zone. And in the third, Lara Jean really gets Chris to step out of her comfort zone and goes, it's okay to like what Chris thinks to be more conventional. It's okay to like prom, or it's okay to enjoy things that she kind of put up a barrier to without kind of giving it a chance. And that was really cool kind of to track that. And as a testament to Michael and Michael's directing, he was always so collaborative and open during anything that we had to say. For each scene, I think Chris ending up in the scene with Lara Jean and Kitty after she's just received the news has not, and Chris to be there with Lara Jean going through this moment, and then I'm going off on a tangent to really relationship expanded and to see that point of change, but also kind of stay. Shouted out to Michael because I think this was a question asked earlier in that he was always so wonderful after take, asking if you were happy before we moved on to a setup. And I think that is incredibly rare. And that was the biggest gift. And he was so kind and giving in his direction, and so kind and giving in hearing what we had to say about our characters, because we'd all been on that journey for all three.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, which is, you know, the feedback that you get from your director can be really important, both for the emotional material and also for the really funny stuff in the film. And I'm curious if any of you want to weigh in on the process, I guess, of directing comedy, and we'll talk about the emotional stuff as well, but like, what sorts of things do you look for when you're working with a director in terms of, you know, landing a joke? Because that's obviously such a big part of you know, what you're going to take away with a movie like this that was also a lot of fun to watch. I'm curious just to hear what's useful and what really helps along the way.
I don't want to step on anyone else if anyone's going to talk, but I think just having that room to play is so needed and so helpful, that I know there were so many takes we would do like different lines every time, or at the end he would just not call cut and let us play and be like, just keep going, just say something, whatever comes to mind, because sometimes those like improv moments and those things that you guys don't even know what you're doing until you're doing it, those create the best like moments that seem more raw and more funny and more whatever. And yeah, just those beats having like, honestly, that's honestly all I can say is just being able to play and having time to not just stick to that one thing, because sometimes it works perfectly and you read it off the page and it's like hits and the beat lands and everyone loves it, but sometimes there's little tweaks that need to be said, or as you're doing it, the more it takes you, like after an hour, you're like, oh, I thought of something new and let's try that, and before we wrap this up, I've got one more idea. And working with other cast members as well, so like Madeleine said, asking before we move on to a different setup if you're happy, like, are you good with what we just got, was amazing. I've never had that before and I really appreciated it.
I think having that.
Oh, Madeleine, I think we lost you momentarily again.
One of the first, while we're waiting for Madeleine, one of the first things that Robyn said to me before we stepped.
That room to improvise.
Sorry, now.
We keep losing you, Madeleine, sorry.
Oh, no need to apologize. This is bizarre, but I don't know if you can hear me.
We can now, yeah.
Oh, you can now. That's great. No, I was just saying you, Michael, gave us that room to improvise, which was huge, and like letting us feel out the words that were already so wonderful from Katie, to be able to then at the end of the take.
Madeleine, try turning off your video just to see if we can get clean audio for a moment. let's see, maybe it'll help if I can. Did that do anything? No, I guess not. Sorry, I don't know, unfortunately, if there's any way that I can fix this remotely. But Michael, why don't you pick up what you were saying? And
yeah, one of the Robyn gave me so much great advice from the producer's chair, both in prep and in production. But one of the things that she said just a couple days before we started shooting was, like, let the takes go long. Let's just do another one with a different intention or a different punctuation. And so all of that is part of just gathering bits so that you can shape it and shape the comedy and make sure you have a pace that works. And that became a source of comedy for both the second and the third. For a lengthy improv, sometimes you just let it go for like a minute and they're so good. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, they're being humble, but like the reality is, if you put Anna and Emilija and Madeleine and Lana and you put them in a room, and Ross Butler, and like, they're just funny. Like, it's just fun. And without question, it's more about getting out of the way and then letting these things happen. And sometimes something would happen, and sorry, you who's just got this really sharp kind of cynical comedy thing happening, and things would happen on take 5, and then you say, oh no, we're keeping that, like that little thing that wasn't ever part of it, like add that back in and now do it again, but with that as a new intention, and it would sort of spiral from there. But that's all them. Like, I just have the best seat in the house. Like, I just have a nice monitor to watch them do awesome things.
I will say too, like, for all 3 of these actors, they did such incredible work in the first movie. And there's a lot of stuff that's character work in the second and third movie that really doesn't necessarily have like a literal companion in the book. There's some things that were just kind of built because, one, the facility of all 3 of these actors is just beyond. They're all incredible. And also they created such indelible characters that you wanted to have fun with them and start to have them try and do more things and get a little weird because there was interesting stuff there. So it's the joy of getting to revisit the same characters and the same, storylines, but make something new. Is like, there was a lot to build
on. Madeleine, I'd love to hear what you were going to say. I'm worried though, with the video and the audio at the same time. So if you wouldn't mind just trying to turn off your video for a second, then we can hear you probably without the image interfering with the bandwidth. This might have to
Devices.
The suspense is killing me. You're gonna have to type something into the chat that we can share out with the audience, because I'm not sure that we're gonna get your whole answer in one go. But Katie, tell us a little bit about in the book adaptation. Was there a lot that you had to take out?
I would say that when I arrived, there were a lot of decisions that had been made for the first movie because of production. The books are set on the East Coast. They don't go to. There is like a set piece in the book where Chris and Lara Jean go and visit the other boy college. It's just, is it University of Virginia? It's or North Chapel Hill or something like that.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I always say, because I've adapted a lot of books in my career, both for TV and for film, and a lot of writers, sometimes they adapt books where the job that you're given is, we like the concept but throw everything out. I don't tend to work on those because in general my barometer is I have to really love the book to want to sink my teeth into it. And I loved this book series, and I'd actually read the first book like years ago when it had first come out. And so for me, when I'm playing with a piece of material that really works, like Jenny Han's books do, but I know I'm going to have to make changes, the barometer that I always use is, well, the changes that I'm making, are they true to the spirit of the book? And so that's an example of that whole set piece in New York that, I mean, the specifics of what happens in New York are not in the book, but the spirit of Chris and Lara Jean going and visiting the other boy and Lara Jean falling in love with it was in the book. And so that's an example. It's difficult for me to say like, how much did I use and how much did I not? Because I had a very unique task as a writer of not only was I adapting the third book, but I was also ending a franchise where 2 movies already existed. And so I basically, when I was working, I would have on one side all my notes on the book and on the other side all my notes on the movies. And then I was just kind of cross-pollinating and working based off of production things and, you know, ideas that Michael and I talked about, or that Robyn or Matt Kaplan or all the, you know, it was a very collaborative process. And so, and because it was a little while ago, it's difficult for me to say like, yeah, I cut a bunch of stuff, or no, I used everything. I kind of can't remember now because the process was so fluid, but I do know that I approached the book in the way that I always do, which is, how can I make the changes that you need to make when you're adapting a novel to screen and still have it be true to all of the amazing work that Jenny had already built and the characters and the world and all that stuff. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but that's an example of like, it wasn't a one-to-one in the book, but it's still a one-to-one in terms of the emotional journey of the character.
Yeah, Katie was our sort of screenwriter slash archaeologist slash mathematician of like what would work and make sense. And it was really incredible to see her do the work. Not an easy task at all. And she really pulled off an incredible script.
Thanks. One of the things I wanted to say too was one of the things that I feel like I got the best job is I got to finish all these characters' arcs. And that's really special because I got to build off of the great work of Sofia Alvarez and Mills Goodloe, but at the same time, like, get to do the fun part, which is the ending. Like, endings are fun. You get to tie it up and it feels so great. And I got to do that part. And that was really special for me. And in particular, as everyone's mentioned, I thought in the books, and in particular, when I read the script for the second movie, I was really impressed with the arc for Jen and Lara Jean. And so I was really excited to get to create these moments in New York where they would start to connect and hint that they were going to end up at the same college together, and hint that like maybe there's a universe where they become really good friends again. And that was cool to get to pose that question.
Madeleine, I know I asked you to turn off your video for a sec. Do you want to see if you can jump in with your mic? We'll give her a second with that. Emilija, shooting in New York.
I'm here. I swear I'm here. And I kind of missed the original question, but kind of building off what everyone else is saying about, I'm guessing it has to do with the book to screen adaptation. It was, and correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not on the path that we're talking about right now.
And even just sort of like what you look for in terms of when you're being directed with comedy, like this was opened up for improv, or like the reactions that you're looking for as an actor.
Yes, I think that you're looking for as an actor is first and foremost when you have such incredible actors opposite you that give you so much to be able to take in and give back what you can. And I think having such strong characters from the books and then having played them over all three and gotten to really understand their worldview and their idiosyncrasies. And for myself with Chris, she is quite zany and quite strong and very specific in how she kind of, as all characters are, kind of views everything. And so finding the comedy through her voice and what she would think funny was always exciting and a challenge. And with Katie and Sophia, and getting these really good one-liners where I would read the script and right away I would go, okay, what are some different ways that I could play with it, and have a few ideas kind of up my sleeve to come onto set to play with. And then of course be ready to let all of those go and just see what worked the best on the day, and then build off of that to improvise. And there were a lot of fun and really cool improvisational moments. In New York, we got to do a lot. All the montage moments were kind of us finding the comedy. And I don't know if this part of my answer made it in before, but I think sometimes the best moments made it in, and some that weren't so great did not make it in for good reason. I remember coming in with one really good comedy line and I was overly proud of it. Michael, you might remember, it was coming down the stairs for prom and it was very cheesy and it didn't make it into the movie, and that's a good thing. But really just finding that voice of the character and living with those characters and their dynamics, and seeing where each one of them kind of fall into the fabric of that like friend group was, I guess, the key to finding the right improvisational comedy and comedy in general.
Emilija, can you jump in on some of the shoot in New York? Like, what was, I mean, given that Madeleine just talked about sort of having to create a lot of stuff for montage purposes, and we've been talking about improv and stuff like that. How did you guys approach that part of the shoot?
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of what Madeleine was saying. I mean, when you have a cast that we're all just, I mean, well, first and foremost, I just want to say, like, I don't think I've ever worked with a director that was so eager for us to have like rehearsal time as well. Like, that really meant a lot. And especially coming off, or we hadn't seen each other for maybe 2 years from the first movie, so to have that reconnection really meant a lot. So then we've been working together for a while, and I don't know, it was a very special cast and crew, and I don't know, it makes your job just so much easier when we're all just having a good time.
I'm seeing a whole bunch of questions from the audience, so I want to kick some things over to them. I'm going to put a little bit of a running list of some people that we can bring over just to say hi and show that there's students out there. But I guess I'll read one to get things kicked off, which is from Michael. What was the best and worst part about being both the director and the DP?
The worst part is sometimes not feeling like you have the presence for everybody who needs you when they need you. Like that, I feel like there's good reason for those jobs to be separate. And, sometimes when I would be on set managing the camera or a light, then I was probably needed somewhere else and wanted to be talking about performance. And so I'd step away to do that. And then, so that was the worst part. But that said, I wouldn't change that choice. I think that especially what I found in the world of To All the Boys is that the behavior, the physical behavior of the characters and the camera are a marriage that, and a language that was established in the first film and sort of continued all the way through. But I feel strongly that the best part of it is being able to have that discussion internally, and then also with the real creative allies that I needed, which was a strong creative producer like Robyn or like Matt Kaplan, and a strong writer like Katie, and a strong editor. And I have 3 amazing editors, Joe and Michelle and Tamra, and those are the creative collaborators that I had to have. And then there's Jenny Han, who was this compass who wasn't on set every day, but like they're her characters and her stories. And so that on top of stepping into a set every day where the cast owned their characters so well and built them from scratch and made them better, like that was the best version of being able to do both jobs, because because I was always being fed such strong story components, and the cinematographer in me feeds off that, and it just made it go, you know. So I would make choices about blocking and behavior, which I felt was my primary role, honestly, because the character choices that the cast made were just so brilliant every day that I could say, okay, you're going to start here, you're going to move over on this line, and let's see how that goes. And knowing that that I already had a camera plan in mind, because I'm in that way, the visual structure of To All the Boys relies on knowing the behavior so that you can plan for the sets to operate a certain way and for the camera to behave a certain way. And those plans were always up front with everybody, and then they made it better. And what's sort of brilliant about this collaboration, and going back through all the movies, but like Robyn would come in and say, okay, thematically we're here. Well, what if we do this? Like in the second film, there's a banner in the hallway, and we had done this riff on all the months as they pass, and a high school banner appears, and those are little chapter headers. And Robyn pitched that one of them is an emotional state of mind, and that's where the heartbreak banner comes from when she first breaks up with Peter. And so we're also connected story-wise, that as a director and a cinematographer, we're just a family. And there was a day, I know I'm just gonna keep complimenting everybody, but there was a day where Emilija was in a scene, where Jen was in a scene, and it was before the New York scene where everybody starts to become pals, but it was after the Jen and Lara Jean connection in the treehouse from the second movie. It was early in the third film. And Emilija pulled me aside after the rehearsal, but before we went to camera, and said, I don't know if Jen should be in this scene. Like, it just feels too early for her to be sort of palling with this group. And she was 100% right. And she opted out to be in a scene because she knew it was the right thing for the movie. And that's, that's everybody thinking of the story. And I'm surrounded by sort of very special, super smart people thinking of the big picture, and it makes it easy.
That is really not something you hear from an actor all the time. So, I mean, Emilija, you have to tell us about that.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think to the scene. I think it was something, we were in a classroom, and I think they were chatting amongst themselves, and I think I was trying to, coming off of the second movie, and just trying to think like where Jen and Lara Jean would be at, and like would it really also make sense? Like, would Chris and Trevor and Peter just be like, oh yeah, Jen is here, like it's completely normal. Yeah, I guess I was just like, I don't know, it might be a little too soon for Jen. So
okay, so I brought a couple people over, and just as I do this, make sure to keep your cameras off until I call on you. But Anne, if you're out there, feel free to jump in, and Madeleine, feel free to turn your camera back on.
I don't know if my camera is on or not. Sorry. I want to say congrats on the third film. I'm a huge fan. I read all the books, so having to watch it all and see it come to life really, it was great. So what I want to know is, where do you see your characters going from there? So Kitty is like in a long distance relationship with Day, and then you have I believe Jen and Lara Jean going to the same university, and then you have oh my gosh, I'm forgetting like names, right? And then Chris goes to Costa Rica. So where do you guys see your characters going? Like, does Chris still have a relationship with Trevor, or is it just going to Costa Rica, and from there, what happens?
Well, I feel like this is maybe a conversation to ask also Michael, Katie, and Robyn about, because I have my own ideas that I've come up with as to where Chris could possibly go. But I'm curious what they would say. I've always thought, since Chris is going to Costa Rica, she's a free spirit. I personally don't think she'll kind of settle down for a while. I think she's really going to take the time to explore the world. And going back, in something that we see in all three movies, is Chris wears a lot of band t-shirts. And I think there's a hidden musical talent or musical love. And I think that after all of her travels, she could potentially end up in the music industry in some shape or form. So that is where I kind of see Chris potentially going. And in terms of like Chris and Trevor, I think they'll float apart and they'll maybe come back together at some point. But that's kind of how I see Chris's future for now.
I've also thought about this, Kitty's future, because I feel like she could go down so many different paths, but like the near future, she'd be starting high school, which I think would be a really interesting thing because Kitty, like in the first movie, she has little things that give you hints that she's pretty popular at school and definitely feels like she's got everything under control. So I think if she was thrown into a really big school, things could change and she might feel like different all of a sudden. So I think I can see her definitely like president of student council, living it up, making new friends, not letting people push her around, even though high school is a really scary time. And I feel like she kind of could have, I don't know if she's prepared for that, but I think it'd be really interesting and Kitty would not let anyone tell her what to do. So it would be really cool to see.
Well, yeah, Laura Jean and Jen, they go to the same school, and there was actually a scene that was cut, but it was basically Jen just kind of like knocks on Laura Jean's door at NYU, and it's something like, "Oh, I'll meet you downstairs" or something, and so I think it's like hinting that maybe they could be friends, and I would love that. But yeah, I don't know, Jen. I think I could see her doing something like whether she's like a school teacher. Like I think she kind of has this big heart, and I could see her working with kids and like giving back or something like that. So.
I think Kitty definitely becomes president. Sorry, I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in on that, but
Yes. Yes, I can totally see it.
Okay, so we have Sophia Franco, and let me just ask you to start your video if you want. Hello, and just unmute yourself, Sophia. Perfect.
This is, sorry, can you hear me? Hi, I was wondering if this question is for Anna. I'm from Argentina, Latin America, and I am a huge Descendants fan. And we know that there is something about Descendants coming this Friday. And what can you say about it without giving it too much away?
Yes, I cannot say much about it, but very soon you're gonna find out. I'm really excited. I was just working on it recently, but yeah, I honestly can't really say anything, but I'm glad you're excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Noelle, are you out there?
Hi, thanks for having me. I just was wondering if there's a scene that was filmed for the third movie that didn't make the final cut and you wish it did.
I think that there's so many sub stories, and one of the things we really worked hard on was trying to fill them and give everybody a chance to, even Emilija just mentioned that there's a moment between Laura Jean and Jen at NYU and that didn't make it, and there's a whole story about Margot and a boyfriend that she brings home that didn't make it. And so we really wanted to be able to give all the little relationships their due, but ultimately you have to make some pretty tough choices about what is going to keep it moving and what's the momentum tells you what you're caring about in the story. And even though we care about all of it and we agonize over losing a line, we had to start to to trim it a bit. There's a really lovely moment when there's a part of it that made the story where Lara Jean comes home from New York and she walks in and sees her home transformed and the furniture is new and the dressing is new, and that's a surprise to her. And she walks to a room off to the side that we've only seen a few times in the films, and it's like the old space never existed because Trina has changed it. And there was a really lovely scene that Katie wrote where it flashes to a moment where young Lara Jean sees her mom wallpapering that room for the first time. And so that was like her mom's space. And then it snaps her out of it, and you get to see the room as it was, and you get to see the room as it is, and you get to see sort of the little bit of pain in like, oh, that was part of my mom's house and now it's not, and what does that mean, and how is my identity changing? And you know, that one hurt to lose, and among lots of other little beats throughout that I think make it a fuller story, but when you're pushing up against 2 hours, you start to realize you've got to make some tough choices.
It looks like we have Aaron out there, and Aaron may not have a camera. So if you just want to use your mic, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'll just use my microphone. Thank you so much. I was just curious about the process for choosing locations in Seoul and whether that was all in the book or there was anything added from the production team.
Katie, you can speak to what was in the book or not. I'm foggy on that because for me, it's all just about location scouting and choosing what's there. But
as I recall in the book, they are planning to go to Seoul over the summer, but we don't actually see them go, as I recall. And I can just say one thing I remember for sure, and I wasn't obviously a part of picking locations as the writer. It was much more like Michael would call me and be like, we have this location, put it in the script. But I do remember Jenny mentioning the 3D cafe in Seoul. And we all like obviously got very excited about that. So I wrote that, I think I wrote that scene in pretty early. And then thankfully the production team was able to work a miracle and get that location. Cause I think it's like a pretty popular spot. But the Seoul stuff wasn't really in the book, but I will say, I collaborated a lot with Jenny about those scenes and in particular some of the emotional material of what that would be like for Lara Jean visiting Seoul. So while it wasn't necessarily in the actual books, I would say Jenny Han's hand and her storytelling and her feeling for those characters is still very present in the film.
The way that we went about finding them and nurturing what we had into the script was, you know, we ran parallel with production in the second film, getting photos and video and trying to figure out what would look best and what the emotional value, what we were trying to fit into Seoul from a character point of view, and try to pair that with settings that did that, and then going there and standing there and figuring out what was possible, what was logistically possible was a different thing because production doesn't operate the way that even the roles are different. So you're sort of figuring out like, what can you control and what can you not control, and is it okay? I mean, I'm sure, you know, Anna, you can speak to what it's like to sort of wander into a truly heavily trafficked, uncontrolled scenario. And I'd done that on other films, and it's exhilarating, and we knew we could do it, but it still comes with a bit of like, we're just gonna hope for the best and just go walk down the street with 10,000 people. So I don't know, Anna, how was that for you?
Yeah, that was an experience like I've never had before. And I think all of us, like the whole cast, we were all like, it was something new for sure. And the learning curve was steep, but it was the coolest experience ever getting to shoot somewhere like that. But yeah, those scenes in like the middle of city streets and shoppers were going by, we could only close off so much. Like it was just a regular busy place. So knowing like who was background, who was not, was fun to figure out, and being very like on your toes. And we were all like very much a team. Like we felt all like we can all do this together. We have to be there for each other in a situation like this. So it was very, very bonding for the cast and the crew, because it was just everything was to another level. Like all those little things that are difficult on normal sets, getting to be somewhere like that and learning new things. And with crew who, like, half of our crew is from Vancouver that came with us, and we worked with a lot of people who were also from Korea, and all of that was like no other, and so amazing.
All right, let's go out to Bethany, if you're out there.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Love the films, love the books. I love you all for making such an amazing movie. And I was just wondering, were there any scenes in particular that you wish had made it into the movie from the books? I know you kind of touched on that with like the scenes with Trina and like Lara Jean's mom. But any like fun little kitty riffs or anything?
I mean, one thing, and Katie, you should pick this up and run with it, that we, was a big part of the books, but not in the movie. Wait, now I'm trying to remember if this is in the second book or the third book. Is the game that they play? So the second book, it is.
Yeah,
And there was a big debate at one point about whether we should try and incorporate it or not. To incorporate it would include, you'd have to sort of spend a lot of sort of screen time explaining what was happening and showing it as it played out. I think that the brilliant thing about how Jenny wrote it in the books is like, it reveals character over and over and over again in the game. And it's such a like cool way of understanding the dynamic between this group of friends / frenemies and like what then changes and evolves. Plus it was just fun, like to play that sort of tag game with your friends. It's for folks who have not read all of the books, it's sort of like a very long running game of tag where you don't know who's trying to tag you, and you're trying to tag someone without revealing that you're trying to tag them, but goes over like weeks of time. And we ended up not being able to include it because it was just taking up too much time. It would have made the movie too long. But yeah, I always had like a little pang of regret for not being able to include that.
Yeah, I second that one. That in the books, I think that's how you learn that Jen's dad is cheating on her mom. Like there's quite a bit of dramatic tension there, and then the John Ambrose is part of that. It's a pretty fun little thing, but it probably the whole movie would have been about that game if we had taken it on.
Maybe a spin-off series, just the game of tag.
Totally.
There was a scene in the third book when Stormy dies. Stormy dies in the third book, and there's a funeral that Lara Jean goes to. And I knew really early on, because we were going to Seoul and New York, and we had a wedding and a prom, that there was not going to be space for a funeral as well. Like I was already unsure how I was going to be able to pull off that many set pieces. And not have it, I really didn't want the script or the movie to feel like we were just going from one like big set piece to the next. And so I knew really early that scene wasn't going to make it into the movie, or that I wasn't going to present it when I was adapting it. And the reason that I wish that we could have, in a world where you get to have a 5-hour movie, is because I really felt like in the second movie, Stormy really showed up for Lara Jean in a moment that maybe traditionally would have been a way that she would have been able to lean on her mother. And I really felt like Stormy was a surrogate mother figure to her. And I think in Lara Jean growing up and in her arc of becoming a woman and making these big, difficult decisions, I think it could have been really valuable to hit at the idea that this surrogate mother figure wasn't there to give her the answers, and that she was going to have to figure it out on her own. But again, I knew really early on that we weren't going to have the space for that, or that it wouldn't fit in the movie. And I think that that's a really lovely scene from the book.
Yeah, that sort of falls into the category of we've been talking a lot about how much you can expand the world, and these characters have become so full that any amount of time you spend with them, you would love to spend more. You would love to invest yourself even more in Trina, and you just get these little bits. There's a terrific scene in the second film where Lara Jean and Trina have a heart-to-heart before she goes to the treehouse and talks to Jen, and that didn't make it either. There's a scene in the third with John Ambrose and Lara Jean that didn't make it, but I think the reason that didn't make it is that it made it too complicated we didn't have enough time to explore that, and life is messy, and it's not black and white. But as soon as you present a John Ambrose, and we talked about this a lot, we debated it, and Katie and I had lots of conversations about, like, well, we can't do it without John Ambrose, but then it became clear that having him meant that you couldn't separate the conflict between Lara Jean and Peter as it relates to college now without infusing John into it. And that wasn't part of this. And as much as we can understand that you can have this conversation with one character and this conversation with another, and they don't have to intersect, that's a hard thing to ask the audience to do. So we made some tough choices.
Great. Thank you so much.
Let's go on to Sophia.
Hi. I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here and talk with us today. It's definitely been really interesting and kind of surreal because the movie just came out and I was like Netflix partying with my friends watching it, and here we are. I had two questions. Alex, should I keep it to one for time's sake, or can I split?
Go for it.
Okay. My first question was with regards to like streaming services. I was just curious, what were some of the specific like factors or decisions that like influenced the decision to produce this for a streaming service like Netflix as opposed to having a theatrical release, and how this might have impacted the movie? I know you guys said before, like, it helped to maintain the authenticity of the story, especially with regards to Lara Jean's Korean American identity, but were there any other things you were able to do because of having it on a streaming service as opposed to theatrical?
Yeah, I can take that one. At the time that we made the first movie, we financed, Awesomeness financed the movie, and we did not have a distribution partner until we were already in post in the movie. So, but at the same time, I think that we always had an eye to putting it up on a streaming service, and that probably being the best distribution platform for the movie. I think that there's like a number of things. It's a really excellent question, by the way, because there's a lot of things that kind of like key off of that that conversation and that choice for the movie. I will also say this was in 2017, and it's now 2021, and the distribution landscape has changed and will continue to change quickly. Definitely at the time, there was an overall feeling like this was going to be a hard movie to try and put on a theatrical platform and have enough people see it and connect to it and react to it to kind of give it a decent life in theaters. And it has to do with the age of the audience, of the core audience. It has to do with sort of the international element of the movie, that like if you put it up on Netflix, it goes worldwide immediately, and suddenly you can get, there's a huge audience in Brazil for To All the Boys. There was a really excited fan base for the books, and it was really exciting to be able to reach those people when the movie was, when you knew the movie was coming out. I mean, one of the stats that we got early on as producers, sorry, my cat is scratching at the door. I'm just gonna go let her in, hang on. So, one of the stats that we got early on from Netflix, which was, I mean, honestly, like you've won the lottery kind of feeling moment as producers, was hearing from Netflix about how many people were watching the movie and how many people were engaging with the movie. And one of the stats they told us was, this is the most viewed piece of content in Asia that Netflix has ever had. for TV, for movies, for anything. And that experience as, you know, someone engaged in the work of storytelling, to be like, wow, that many people saw this movie and connected to this movie and talked about it and talked to their friends about it, like that's just so huge. And definitely like there was always kind of, you know, a momentary like, oh, this isn't going to be in the theater down the street from me, I can't, you know, see it on the big screen. But to me, what's far outweighed is the fact of so many people getting to see the movie and connect with it.
Awesome. And then quick question for Katie, how closely did you get to work with Jenny Han? I was just wondering how much of a role she played in helping with the adaptation, and if so, what was that process like to work with an author?
Yeah, I would say Jenny was involved always start to finish. And that's always really important to me, especially like I mentioned earlier, in general, when I adapt things, I'm adapting things that I love. And so for me, having the author weigh in is always extremely important to me because they're the originator of the characters. And I really see myself as a translator. And it's really helpful to have somebody there who you can go like, hey, I'm going to do this thing that's not in the books. I'm going to have the characters behave this way. Does that feel true to you? And to have someone go like, yeah, good. Or go like, no, they would never do that. And so Jenny and I actually became friends through the process of working together on this thing. And that was really awesome. She's really amazing. And I felt so fortunate to have the opportunity to bring this book to life. And yeah, I would say she was very involved giving notes and very instrumental in the adaptation.
Awesome. Thanks y'all so much.
All right, let's go out to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I don't know if you listen to me.
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So, well, I love the films. I love the saga. Thank you very much because you gave us, well, something to adore. So thank you very much for what you did. So you've talked about lots of scenes that didn't make it, lots of things that you wanted but didn't make it to the movie. So we'll be able to see those scenes that didn't make it, more bloopers maybe.
I believe all of the outtakes Netflix has released. Some of them were such partial scenes or were just ideas that we never took to camera. But there are several scenes I think they've put out, and they're probably on YouTube somewhere. I'm not exactly sure.
And I have a little one because I saw on, well, many interviews that Madeleine and Ross did like a tango scene. So we want to see it. So we'll be able to see it somewhere.
Madeleine, did you guys do a tango that I shot and don't remember?
It must have been that bad then, you know? Yes, it was at the prom, and there was this tango moment where when Jordan was on set that day, he helped us choreograph this little tango dance, and it had some lifts and things. But I think, as you were saying, it was one of those things that they would have been a 3-hour movie to include all of those little bits. But I am curious to see it one day.
I'll go back and find out where that is.
Yeah.
I do remember now that he lifts you up, and yeah, you guys were working.
Yeah, we were trying very hard. You could say that for sure.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Let's go out to Daniela.
Hi. In the movies, your characters have like a really distinctive style, even down like to your clothes, but also your hairstyles. And I was wondering if you guys got a say in what you think your characters would wear and what they wouldn't wear.
I'll jump in. Yeah, definitely when we came back for the second and third, I think because we already had a sense for our characters, it was nice that we could collaborate, and the hair and makeup team would, ask us like if we have any ideas, any thoughts. And especially for prom, I thought that was really special. Like, if we had ideas for hair and like how we would envision our characters going to prom. So that was
really cool.
Yeah, it was really special to be able to have kind of that collaborative process of, especially as the movies progressed in discovering the characters. And for example, with Chris, and I remember on the first movie actually talking with Robyn a lot and talking about like the highlights in Chris's hair, because in the first and second movie, in the first movie she has pink and blue highlights, and in the second, or pink and purple, and the second she has blue. I'm confusing it. But anyway, besides the point, talking with Robyn about kind of her look specifically on the first with like the band tees and the eyeliner and playing with hair extensions, and then on the second kind of seeing that transformation to bold eye looks, and then on the third kind of making it more neutral and kind of really coming into her own. But it was really cool to kind of to be a part of that, and especially with the prom look, I think like Emilija was saying, to really get to voice what we thought the characters would come up with for that iconic kind of high school moment in their lives.
I would just say Kitty's tux for the wedding was really special to me, and I think was so cool because it was more than just like clothes, like to her, and in the story as well. I think it shows just Kitty's personality being like, I don't want to do what everyone else is doing, and I don't care if you think this is a bad idea, Laura Jean, I'm gonna do it. And I love that was written in so much, because I think that says so much about Kitty's character and Kitty's personality and mindset towards everything in life. And I also just loved the tux and thought it was super cool. So yeah, I love how, like, for sure wardrobe can say more than just like, oh, she's just wearing clothes. It says a lot about the person and about the character throughout. So I loved that moment a lot.
Thank you.
I'm going to add just a little moment that's part of that design, character design, and something else that just time-wise didn't get to make it. But there's a nice little exchange between Chris and Kitty in the scene in Always and Forever, where Lara Jean's packing her bags to go to New York, and Chris is at the table doing her nails, and Kitty comes into that scene. It's not in the film. Kitty comes in later and sort of walks in on them talking about sex and interrupts it, and they shut that down pretty quickly. And Chris makes a barters with Kitty to go get her a drink from the kitchen because she's doing her nails, and Kitty bargains to get cowgirl print on her nails, which is it's a super cute, fantastic, funny scene, and it ends with Chris saying, "I wish I had a sister so I could boss her around," and that's just it's terrific. And schedules are tight, doesn't matter what you do, but we agonized over this, because then I thought, well, we have to then, every time we see Kitty after that, she has to have on this cowgirl print, and what the hell is cowgirl print? Like, we had to figure out what that looks like, and how the little, like, does it look like cow hide and like white with little black spots? And that's what it ended up being. So if you look carefully in the scene when Lara Jean gets the NYU acceptance letter, Kitty has little cowgirl print nails because of that scene that didn't end up making it. But like, that was a thing we fought for, because we didn't have, I don't remember, Anna, if you do, but it's like, we didn't have the 40 minutes to send Anna back to the trailer to get the first nail polish off and the cow print on, and we're just like, well, we have to do it, it's just going to be so funny, and we somehow figured out how to do it. There
were many times where like 3 different makeup people were all doing my nails and blowing on them and had tiny fans, because they were like, we gotta go, and I was like drying it as we were about to go, and then the next thing would be like, okay, she has to take it off, and the next thing after that I was like, no, we have to have it back on. I know, when I watched like the final cut, I also was like, no one will know all the effort that went into the small little details of her cow nails. And I totally remember Michael being like, what is cowgirl nails? And I was like, I don't know, that's not a thing. And us trying to like Google search, being like, cowgirl nails, what could that even mean? Yeah, that's so funny. I forgot about that. That is something fun people would never know and not notice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniela. We've got just a few more. Caitlin, if you're out there.
Hi, I'm a really big fan. I'm shaking right now, so I'm sorry about that. I actually dressed up as Lara Jean for Halloween my junior year, so I feel a very strong connection to this series. I feel like somebody asked this earlier, but just as a Korean American, there were a lot of familiar locations from the scenes filmed in Korea. So I was just wondering if there were any funny behind the scenes stories from the filming there.
Anna, you take that one. I'm sure you had way more fun than I did.
Shooting in Korea was the highlight personally, and just getting to be there with Lana and Janelle and Saryu and everybody was so amazing. The last day, or one of the last days that we were there, me, Lana, and Janelle put a love lock at Seoul Tower, and it says like Soul Sisters on it. We thought we were so funny because anyway, and little moments like that are so cool and mean so much to me. Looking back now, like it was a while ago, it was in 2019 that we went, and just going to that section of my camera roll is so crazy. All of the things that we got to do in Korea, but the locations, what was cool, and we would say this all the time, that we were like, how is this our job? Like, these are places we would want to go and explore anyway, and tourist places that we would have had on our list, and we got to work there and got to film there, and some of them with nobody there because it was like shut off or at 5 a.m. in the morning or crazy times. So yeah, Korea was like no other. Something that I just think is interesting, we shot the karaoke scene, and it looks like outside that like the sun is setting. The sun was actually rising. It was like 4:30 a.m. and we were singing like Iggy Azalea, I think, and all of us, we were like hyping each other up and be like, we can do this, we can look energized, we can look like we want to be in a karaoke bar right now. And yeah, I think that's so funny because it literally looks like the sun is setting and it was rising.
That production, there's like production justice, right? Like you're supposed to just have this super joyous, seemingly enjoyable experience. And man, I don't know how the cast does it, but you all show up at these crazy hours, first to go through the works and then show up on set at like 4:30. So it probably meant you got picked up at like 1:30 that same night. And then there was another one in the swimming pool in Seoul, and the sisters are supposed to be having this fantastic time in the pool while Dan and Trina are watching them laugh, and that swimming pool was freezing. Like,
it was so cool.
And
yes,
you can't pretend to enjoy yourself when you're just shivering, but you guys did.
It was like one of the last scenes of the day as well. I think it was like midnight or 1 or something at like late at night, and we were all like, yes, trying to swim and have fun as freezing. But honestly, those are some of my favorite parts. Like it's so fun.
Thank you.
Yes, another quick behind the scenes from Korea that could have been considered funny was I was there and I got to be there kind of before filming started and was there for one day of filming, and the dream sequent cat played that day, and there was talk that I could try to play the cat, but unfortunately that did not come to fruition. But I was so excited for my greatest acting role yet as the cat, but sadly I'll have to play the cat another time.
I'm sorry that didn't happen for you. I don't know why.
Okay. These things happen.
Okay, let's go out to Amy.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I love the films. I will turn on my camera, but I look horrible, so it's better if I don't. So I have always been curious about the character Josh. I don't really remember if there was ever closure with him. Like, what happened to Josh, or what do you think happened to Josh? Just because like he was their next door neighbor. So yeah.
I can take that one. So Josh is Margot is 2 years older than Largene, and Josh is in the grade between them. So yeah, I mean, I think that Largene kind of continues to know Josh. He comes up occasionally in the books, but ultimately, like, he heads off to college before a lot of kind of the main drama, certainly of this movie, happens. And I think, as the point Michael was making earlier about bringing sort of like people from her past into the mix of her current sort of turmoil, could make it seem like there's a romantic entanglement when there no longer is. So I think we, kind of decided that Josh was someone who wasn't really going to be on screen much anymore, because I think it would sort of cloud the water as to what was going on in Laura Jean's heart.
Thank you.
Okay, so we also have Laura, and I need to ask you to start your video. There we go.
Hi. Oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan. I'm from Bolivia. I live in La Paz. Here is at 11 o'clock. So I have two questions. One for the actresses, Emilija, Madeleine, and Anna. Is if the character you play affect in your life, like in a good way, if you learn something to make you strong, and I don't know, if you love it, really love it, like it, and how the film changed your life, no? For the producers, thank you so much for the movie. It's the rom-com I always wanted when I was a kid, because now I have 24. In 22 March, I'm gonna have 25. So I really love the film. It makes me to do more beautiful my art. It inspires me because of the colorimetry and the photography. And I have a question too. How you could do to put the colors in the Empire State Building, like the pink, the yellow, and the blue? I love that scene because I love New York. I never went there to New York, but I really love New York. It's my dream to be there, and my dream to meet you guys, all of you. Thank you.
Anna and Amelia and Madeleine, you want to take the first part?
Sure. I think that Chris is so confident and comfortable in who she is, and really she just walks to the beat of her own drum. And I think that over the course of filming, I became more confident in myself, and that's a huge thing, as well as she's very sassy. And I think that I gradually became more sassy over the course of filming. I especially noticed in movie 3, I'd go, oh, wow, that was a little different. I don't normally do things like that. So I really enjoyed playing Chris, and I'm so grateful that she helped me in my own journey to becoming more confident. And in terms of how it's changed my life, I would say rather than changed, it's enriched my life. Getting to work with all of these people here today has been one of the most special and incredible experiences ever. Getting to learn from everyone, having had the good fortune to develop a character over all three movies. I think that's been the greatest gift, is really getting to collaborate with all these extremely talented people and getting to lift these words off the page and play with it.
I would say all of the same things about how this enriched my life and changed it in so many ways. I think I just feel really grateful and lucky to have so many role models, because in ways I kind of feel like I grew up on this set, because I just finished grade 8 when I started this whole journey, and now I'm graduating high school. So it's so weird. I've kind of grown up with Kitty by my side and with all these characters and all these people. So I definitely feel like I've grown as an actor, but also just as a person in general. And I'm thinking about my future career goals, or just like life paths, and all these different people, if it's on like a personal reason or if it's like in film and in my career, I've gotten to learn so much from them. So I'm just beyond grateful about all of it. And I definitely feel like it's changed so many things for the better. And Kitty herself, she's just, I think a lot of us can learn from her. She's so confident in who she is. And that's something I always preach and always strive for. And it's tough, especially at someone her age and my age as well, just going through different things and not being like worried about conforming to other people's expectations, and doing what you want to do and being who you want to be. And I hold Kitty so close to my heart for so many reasons, but that's definitely a big one.
Yeah, and Jen was probably my most challenging character. I remember when I booked it, I was just so nervous. Like, can I do this? Am I going to be believable? But yeah, I mean, being with such a supportive and loving cast and crew, I mean, it really did build my confidence up and opened up so many opportunities and doors that I never thought were possible. Like, New York was my first time ever in New York, which just felt so surreal and special, and for that to be part of work. And yeah, it's a very, very special experience. And I think Jen's arc is also just a nice reminder that you know, there's a lot that people are going through, and it's not always just as it seems. And yeah, I mean, like Anna and Madeleine said, this has been such an enriching experience. So I'm forever grateful, and to Michael and Robyn and Katie and Jenny and everyone. It's so special.
Yeah, thank you for your questions, Laura, and for being up so late with us. And it's so cool to hear that, you know, the movie and the look of the movie and the colors are triggering, you know, you and your own art. I think that's something that's super exciting for any creative person to hear, is that it's triggered, you know, creative impulses in you. So that's awesome. I know that all of us have that same experience of things that we've watched and seen, like we put into our own work. So it's really cool. On the Empire State Building question, I wasn't in the specifics of that. I think Aubrey Bendix, another producer, was really in the weeds on figuring that out. I don't know if Michael has any insight into that.
I believe that in order for us to have the Empire State Building be a significant part of a shot, we had to, because we chose that rooftop knowing that it would have that view, that the license for seeing the Empire State Building comes with a cost. And I think that license includes changing the lights. I believe that's how that went. No, I could be wrong, but
Sounds familiar. I remember that.
yeah, it wasn't like, hey, we need it to be our colors. That wasn't the thing we knew we wanted to do. It was an option. And then of course we're like, yeah, we want to change the colors. Like here are the colors. And you know, like it's just one of those things that we made our own. But you know, good things happen.
Yeah, unrelated, but I happened to be in New York City when they legalized gay marriage, and they lit up the New York State Building with the rainbow colors, and it was awesome. Like they have colors, and will sometimes do that on the Empire State Building.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the movie. I love it, and I'm a huge fan of your works. Thank you. I'm so grateful because of this moment.
Thanks, Laura. Let's go to our last question, which is Robert.
Hey, my question is for Michael, and my question is how your early work on some of your short films like Ocha Cups for Christmas and 2+1, which were in their own way big international productions, prepared you for the international aspects of this film?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the good fortune of the shorts that I had while at SC, I mean, sometimes you take projects because you love them, sometimes you take them because it's a trip to a place you've never been, you know, like you just, you know, and at that time, and then also the professional side of that, getting out of school where you're just like, I just need to tell stories and I just need to work and I just need to pay the bills. And so you just shoot everything, you know, you're just like, I'm going to make whatever I can. And I was really fortunate to be able to work in, like you said, in Japan, Paris. And then later I was fortunate to work with Arvin Chen, another USC alum, on a feature he made called Au revoir Taipei, and shot a story that took place all one night in Taipei. And it was a little fun crime caper, sort of a riff on French New Wave cinema, where two people running from the Taiwanese mob have to fall in love over the course of this 12-hour night run crime story. And we had cameras in all the night markets all the time, but had no control over anything, and would just follow people through the streets and use available light. And that experience gave me the confidence to say out loud to a room of people, like, yeah, we can go to Seoul and go to this market and follow this family through the streets. You know, it was intimidating at times, and you know, it like Anna was saying, like sometimes you're just going through it and there's people and there's like a car that drives and that car wasn't supposed to be there, and you have to keep everybody safe. But there's something truly authentic and also liberating about being able to identify the energy of a moment in a story and going at the right time of day, where you've studied it and you've put all the people in the right places and just kind of see what happens. That stuff looks great because it is what it is. We didn't get in the way.
Well, I've kept you guys really late, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with all of our students. This was really awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to pull all of this together. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to continue to discover the films, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. If I can plug one thing, I was a huge fan of Color Out of Space, which was, I actually got to see that at the Vista.
Oh, no way. I was at that screening then. That's too funny. I'm so happy you enjoyed it.
Awesome movie. So
that
thank you
means a
all so
lot.
much. I hope we can get you all to campus at some point with your next projects. And you know, Michael, Katie, Robyn, if there's ever a choice between NYU or USC, I think you should lean Trojan next time. Although this was a really special movie, and I'm really glad you went with New York. So thank you all so much, and have a great night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great night.